the fighting patrol went out, came across this other patrol, but didn't know who they were. They weren't supposed to be there. So they set up an ambush, laid in an ambush, set the ambush up, and someone said, could it be the mortars? And they went, no. So to confirm it, they got one of the lads, the MFC, to talk to his best mate and say, just a bit of confirmation. So he got on the radio and said, he says, listen, just for confirmation, but are you actually walking or are you static? Are you stood still?
Yep.
Now, he was at the front of the patrol, the mortars, unbeknown to him that the mortars had decided to take a break. So had stood, taken the mortars off and just, he was actually walking at the front, map reading. And he said, and so he passed back on the radio, no, we're actually yomping to the site, and unfortunately, blue on blue occurred. So they lost. I think they lost another five more people.
Welcome to the first episode of Conversing with CJ, and I'm joined by a very special guest, and I will say that in every episode because every single person that will feature on this podcast has a story worth hearing and, of course, worth telling. This guest, his accolades exceed him. The mountain troops, as well as the SAS, had a massive storied career in corporate security. Now he's doing rural farm security consultancy, as well as currently writing a memoir, from what I'm led to believe. His name is Mick Hawkes. First of all, thank you very much for joining me. And how is your morning going so far over there?
Yeah, no, all good. And thanks, CJ, for the invite. Much appreciated, especially being in a different country, I suppose. But yeah, nice early start here. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, so a few hours difference from Oz. The reason why I didn't want to do Saturday is because this would have clashed with the British Lions game.
Oh, yep. I don't blame you at all. So obviously we were just talking off air that you're a big rugby fan, which anyone who's watched your episodes, your guest spots on other podcasts, you mentioned football, but we actually got talking about rugby. So my question for you is, do you follow the British rugby, or do you follow the Aotearoa New Zealand rugby? Do you have a team that you support other than internationally?
Yeah, so I'm a staunch Leicester Tiger fan, first and foremost, Leicester Tigers. Yep. So me and my daughter go and watch the Tigers, actually managed by Michael Checker at the moment, who's about to leave. Yeah, he's about to go back to Australia, I think. Done a fantastic job for us, as most Aussies that come over to Leicester really do well. Pat Howard comes to mind as a classic example. I'm Leicester Tiger fan first and foremost.
Yep.
England fan second. Had a great result in Argentina last night. British Lions, obviously, mixing with the Welsh and the Irish and the
yep. But it's British Lions. Yep.
But I also follow international rugby. Seeing how the Aussies got on, I watched the Fiji game last night. British Lions, the British Lions certainly wouldn't have lost any sleep over that game, believe you me.
No.
As the Aussies would not have missed much sleep over our game against the Waratahs.
No, I agree.
So I think it's going to be quite a close series. To be honest, I'd like to see it 2-1. To obviously the British Lions. Because I hate seeing 3-0 rollovers. Because I spent 7, nearly 8 weeks in Australia just after we came back from the Falklands.
Oh, wow.
And we were initially based up in, and this is before my SAS days, this was in my commando days, straight after the Falklands, I suppose, in the summer. We got invited by an artillery unit over in Australia who were based in Queensland. So we spent a fantastic 8 weeks over there, and it was good to actually decompress, as we call it. Yeah, because the Falklands was quite, although it was a very short and sharp and aggressive, quite a bloody sort of war. Conflict. It was actually quite long and drawn out, purely because of the sailing time getting down there and on the way back as well. So it was actually quite a long haul.
Everything begins with a childhood. What was your childhood and upbringing like, Mick?
Not fantastic, to be honest. My father was in the military. We call it crapper. So he was normal army, wore a BlackBerry, hence the crapper sort of term. Royal Signals. So I went to 14 different schools.
Wow.
6 months here, 8 months there, 9 months here. So moving around.
You wouldn't have really had chance to make friends, sort of thing.
No, and this is where the football came in, the soccer.
Okay.
I found out I was quite good at football. So played for every single school that I went to. Bizarre because my father and my mum never came and watched me play football at all in all that time. And when we were based in Germany, so I spent 5 years as a school kid in Germany. I played for an under-18s team at the age of 14.
Oh wow!
And in Germany, they take their football really serious. So it was playing for a local town, and again played every Saturday, and they never came and watched, which for me, at the time, didn't really resonate with me, I suppose. Yep. But as soon as I had my own kids, and you see the value of actually going out and supporting them and being there, just so that they could look across to the sidelines and see, a friendly
see
face.
Dad's there rooting for me, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was a bit annoyed with that. So we then what happened was my mum and dad divorced when I was in Germany as a school kid in Germany.
At what age, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I was 14.
That's
so I had.
Wow,
yeah,
that would have been rough.
Yeah, absolutely. So 18 months left of schooling. I had a slightly older brother who was in his final year of schooling, and I had a younger sister who was how old? 5 or 6 years younger than what I am,
Okay.
So we came back to England. They divorced. Bizarrely, my father decided that he was going to walk out of the family, and I've never seen him since. I found out he passed away in 1997.
Wow.
But yeah, I thought that was a shitty thing to do as well. 3 kids.
Just a bit, yeah.
You know what I mean? And he walked out. So childhood, not fantastic, but it is what it is, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Came back to England. Yeah, I mean the syllabus, the school syllabus was totally different in England compared to Germany.
As you were saying, even though you moved, 14 different times, Germany, you were there for at least 4 years. So at least the syllabus was very similar for you for those 4 years in Germany. So yeah, going from Germany to England, knowing 4 years worth of schooling, you would have been like, what the heck?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And my brother suffered more because he went straight into his final year, and ended up when he left, he went to college and became a mechanic, I suppose. I had 18 months left of schooling, so heart and soul into football, because that's what I was good at. Sort of did the basics: English, maths, English, history. When we did our exams, but not spectacular, to be quite frank. So I just banked on everything, being a professional footballer. And so
you didn't have a plan B?
No, at the time, no. So I went and had a trial with a little team called Lincoln City. Which we moved back to Lincolnshire. Yep. Lincoln City were the closest side. I played left back. And as far as they were concerned, I was left back in the changing room.
Yeah, left, right, out, as they say. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I never got a chance to shine. You probably get about an hour to show you,
impress, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. And because I was in quite a strong side, I suppose, and played left back. Yeah, they weren't attacking, and you couldn't really show much. So unfortunately, and you wore those yellow bibs with a big number on it, and my name never got called, or my number never got called. So yeah, quite disheartened, trudging back to a little small village called Alford in Lincolnshire.
Okay.
And then realised, flipping hell, because I had no intention of joining the military at all, even though.
Was it because of your parents and their base to base sort of life?
Yeah, right. So I refer to my dad as a crapper. So all the units that I saw were crap units. So and being in Germany, big heavy drinkers, the British military at the time, because you had units out there that had been there for 20 odd years in the same place, So
basically since the end of World War II, more or less.
Yeah, absolutely. So they were alcoholically rotund.
Yep. Yep. Wow.
You know what I mean? So they didn't really inspire me. You know, it wasn't as if you saw paratroopers.
It was like a dad's army sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's no disrespect to the British Army.
No, I mean no
at the
disrespect
time,
either.
Yeah, it just didn't inspire me at all. But however, you know, not being a footballer, right? What plan B? So in Lincolnshire, the kids are normally mechanics, bricklayers, work in a factory, or farmer, or being in Lincolnshire, people join the Royal Air Force.
Oh, okay,
yeah, there's a lot of airfields around Lincolnshire. And to be honest, I didn't like the sight of their shiny, nice little blue uniforms, and
yep.
So that got me off. Yeah, my mum actually wanted me to join the Navy because the uniform looked nice.
Fair. And so you ruled out the Air Force. What made you rule out the Navy?
Yeah, because of my mum wanted me to go there. So, and I've always been a bit of a rebel, so that was a no-no.
Yep.
So I went down to a city called Grimsby, small city, I suppose, to the north of where we were, to the recruiting office. And as I walked in, there was a big burly paratrooper sat behind a desk, and behind him was a big picture of people jumping out of an aeroplane. And this guy, he looked the part, you know what I mean? And if you recruit, if you want to meet someone to inspire you, this guy had it all, and that was it. I was hook, line, and sinker. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Not realizing, the hard work it takes to actually get to that point of jumping out of that aircraft. But 15 3/4, there's me signing on the line. That's where I wanted to go,
Yeah. Wow.
And that was it. And that's so 15 and a half. Signed up 16. So I was 16 in the September, 6th of September 1975. Off I went down to Aldershot to join the Junior Parachute Regiment.
And what was that experience like?
Yeah, well, it was great. And I tell you what, a bit of a shock to the system. Thankfully, I've been to a boarding school in Germany. So I wasn't, I was used to being away from home, if that makes sense. Whereas a lot of the peer people that I was joined up with, some of them, it's the first time they'd been away from home, and they found that quite tough. Because you always have that sort of a few days where people get homesick and all that sort of stuff. Thankfully, I never went through that. But bizarrely, so when I was at school, I never ever finished a cross country run. Why? Because I had a ball under my arm and running. Cross country running didn't fit with soccer. What I mean, or football. So I had no interest in cross country. So I used to bunk off it and not bother and all this sort of thing. Got down to Depot Para. One of the first things we did was a 10-mile run, and it was all the new recruits together, and it was a 10-mile. And bizarrely I came in second.
Wow.
And found out that I was actually a bit of a natural runner. Which came as a bit of a shock. Running past all these people with ease, thinking, flipping out, where's this come from?
Yeah, wow. That's
I wish now that I'd done more of this when I was at school, maybe I've sort of got somewhere
No, that's fair. And after the junior para, where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so junior para.
And how long did junior para last, if you don't mind me asking?
So you join up at 16. Obviously, you can't do normal basic training until you're at least 17. Because at 17 and a half, when you're due to finish your 6-month course, is when you can then deploy up to a para battalion. Although you can't go on operations until you're 18.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense.
So the 16 to 17 really was just getting used to army life, and all the bullshit that went with it. So in the meantime, I then decided to volunteer for gymnastic platoon and I'm not a gymnast, and they, they don't do all this normal type stuff you see on TV. But what they do is they tour the country, and they work with trumpets, and you sprint and do a somersault or a Barani, or a pike somersault, double somersault, all that sort of thing. And it culminates really with these massive boxes, the normal wooden horses you get.
Yep.
Well, if you triple that in size, they were the four horses, and you had a square, large, or mini trampoline in the middle, and then you had four run-ups, and basically you chuck off on a trampet over the large horse, hit the trampoline, and then double somersault or whatever, and it was quite spectacular, I suppose, to people watching. Quite a few crashes. If you get the timing wrong, you're going to mess it up massively. But it was great fun, if that makes sense. And actually, we went to the 1976 FA Cup final.
Oh wow!
Which was, down at Wembley, and it was quite a significant day because it was the last time that the Queen actually handed the trophy over. It was, yes. Southampton, because Southampton beat Man United 1-0.
It's always a good day when Man United get beaten.
Well, I'll tell you what was bizarre, because you do all these shows all around the country, and one of them was at Portman Road, Ipswich.
Wow.
Before the Ipswich Man United game. Same score, 1-0 to Ipswich. So
maybe you're the bad luck. I saw that on film. Maybe Phil Campion show. Maybe you're the bad luck for Manchester United. Hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Southampton game. Southampton were in the old second division, as it was called then. So Man U.
To lose to a team in the second division. Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
And well, bizarrely, so I went to a fifth round game between Leicester City and Man United during that FA Cup run, because I had the weekend off in Aldershot, so I travelled up to Leicester to watch the game, and Man U beat us. So it was nice to see them get beaten in the final.
Oh, absolutely, especially given that they beat Leicester for you. It would have been great to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so your time in go ahead.
Yeah, so although you're doing this tour around the country, which is great as a young kid, I suppose, you always came back to Aldershot, and I was in the cross-country team, I was in the football team, but you still did normal military, you're still marching, so you were still a soldier, but you were, touring the country.
So you were a soldier first, and you were whatever you were doing after that second sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so at the age of 17 then, so 16, 17 now, you then join Recruit Company, which is a proper basic para training.
And how was that?
Tough going, because you're a young lad, I was skinny as hell, which is probably why I was a really good runner.
Yeah.
And because we'd done a year in juniors, you then you didn't start at day one, week one. With some of the new recruits, you joined at week. Well, they had this test where the best sort of 20 or the best 15 or so out of 70 were going to join at week 6, and then everyone else was going to join at week 4, something like that. So I was lucky enough to be in that first batch. So we joined at week 6, and it was great. The training really is quite tough going training, especially as a young lad. Going through all the rigors. You're now in man service, so the instructors that you had were different to the instructors that we had for juniors, because in juniors it was more kid clubs. Now you're in Recruit Company, forget all that fanning about that you were doing for a year. You were full on doing the training.
And how did you adjust to that?
Yeah, it's what I'm to. You just got on with it, if that makes sense. But it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable. Now, bizarrely, we had a weapon called a GPMG, General Purpose Machine Gun, and we had a quite a robust instructor, if that makes sense. And anyway, he was asking questions to all the recruits, and he asked me a question, and I got it wrong. So to punish me, the barrel of the GPMG is actually quite heavy. He smacked it over the top of my head, and there was blood pouring everywhere. But it wasn't an issue because the question that he asked me, which was about all the stoppages on a GPMG, I still can recite all them stoppages now at the age of 65. So it works.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Although it sounds a bit callous. In them days, it wasn't. It got the point across, if that makes sense. So,
absolutely, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then week 12, we went through P Company, which is the official test to actually earn your maroon berry,
not your crap hat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before that, you used to wear a camouflage peak cap, if that makes sense. And anyway, that came off. So I managed to get through that, and then week 14, 15 ish, we were due to go to Wales to do a training type package, which lasts for about 2 or 3 weeks, I think it was. It's called Advanced Wales. So you did basic Wales, you did P Company, and then you did Advanced Wales at the end of it. And so we were in training to go there. So we went out and did a 10-mile run, as you do, with your boots on and all that.
And
sort
full
of stuff.
gear and webbing and everything.
Yeah, no, not full gear. It was just it was PT top and denims. As in not Levi denims, but your army denims and boots and putties. And away you went on a 10-mile run, and it was quite fast going, quite enjoyable. But while we were out there, we went on to a known area of Aldershot called Hankley Common, which is they use tanks on there, so there's a lot of tank burns, where tanks go in there and they sort of build up a lot of side areas.
Yep.
And we got out there, and obviously the instructors wanted a bit of fun.
Okay.
So they gave a quick demonstration on a para roll. So when you obviously do your parachute and when you land, you do a para roll. And we also looked at it and said, right, everyone happy? Yeah, we should do that. So they took us on top of a tank burn, and it was about, I would say, about a 8-foot drop, 8 foot down into fairly loose sand, I suppose.
Wow. Okay.
Or so we thought.
Okay.
So when I jumped off, all I could hear was this crack, and just absolute agony in my right ankle, pain, So because we didn't have an ambulance following us, it was just nobody expected to have injuries or whatever. Well,
because you're at the fittest you're at, you wouldn't expect to have something like that happen.
No, absolutely. So unfortunately for the lads, they had to carry me, carry me back. So and it was about, I would say, about a 5-mile trip back to Browning Barracks, which is where the barracks was. So they carried me back there. They then sent me straight up. The medical centre rushed me straight up to the hospital, the Cambridge Military Hospital, as it was called, even though it's in Aldershot. Who then X-rayed it, and what they did was they manipulated the ankle to put it in. So they obviously knocked you out.
It was dislocated, or was it broken, or both?
It was broken. It was broken. Wow. So anyway, they sort of manipulated it, got it all sorted out. I was then put in plaster, and then really bedridden for the next 2 weeks in Cambridge Military. So what happened was they then re-X-rayed it after 2 weeks.
Yep.
And because I was due to to leave, they were going to put a little stopper on the bottom of the cast so that you could actually just start walking around and just get a bit of movement going.
Yep.
Anyway, so they re-x-rayed it, and they said, listen, it hasn't knitted properly. Yep. So we're actually going to pin the ankle, which was a bit of a setback.
Yeah.
So went through the operation. They pinned it, and then that was another 4 weeks in hospital. Bedridden, which is a bit of a bummer.
And how was the rehab? Given you were at the peak of your fitness and your ankle has done that, how was it recovering and getting back to that fitness level?
Yeah, quite difficult. So 4 weeks in hospital again. I was then released to slowly start weight bearing. Mm-hmm. The cast came off after about 7 weeks, and then it was just a slow. It took a good six months, I would say, to get back to running and having the confidence to bounce about on an ankle that's now got a pin. Now, what I neglected to realise is that the pin was due to be taken out after 18 months. So due to be in there 18 months. So in the meantime, so 6 months later, just starting to run, I got called into the office, the training major, and with him was a medical doctor who, unfortunately, said, "Listen, it's advisable that you can't parachute anymore because of the pin." They were obviously just being a bit too cautious for my liking.
Erring too much on the side of caution.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was devastated. And they said, listen, these are your options. And the thought of being a crap at, I suppose, going back to a normal, didn't appeal to me. So I said, no, don't want any of that. So I actually said, I'm going to leave the army. I'm just totally gutted, if that makes sense. So I left the army. Yeah, I left the army.
How long did you leave for?
3 months.
And what did you do in that 3 months?
Not a lot. Worked on farms, picking strawberries and Brussels sprouts and all this sort of stuff. I then got a job in a flexographic printer. So printing on plastic sheets. Mundane job. But then I realised, big mistake. I should have stayed in and I should have taken the advice and gone to an infantry unit. So I then went back to the same recruiting office that I went to. The paratrooper, the one in Grimsby. Gone. Yeah. Yep. So the guy had now gone, so different person. But he had all my records and he said, listen, you got a really good report here. You're a fit lad. Big red thing on the front, no parachuting. He said, have you thought about being an armoured commando? And I thought, well, tell me more.
Yeah.
This is not the Royal Marines. This is Army Commando. Yeah. Because I was in an Army recruiting office. And they mentioned 5-9 Commando engineers or 2-9 Commando, which is a Royal Artillery unit. And my father was attached to Royal Artillery units, bizarrely. Okay. So Royal Artillery was stuck in my head and I just went, I'll join the artillery. Yep. So went down, literally about a month later, ended up going down to Woolwich, down in London, to do basic artillery training. And bear in mind that, I'd spent a year, or just over a year, I suppose, as a junior paratrooper. So I had a massive advantage over the others. So I ended up getting best shot, best recruit, and best gym, all the awards, really. Yep. Yeah, but I felt a bit false, really.
A bit of the imposter syndrome sort of thing.
Yeah, well, the gym thing was a bit bizarre because I was in gym platoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
And Royal Artillery training is not like parachute regiment training. It's a lot less physical, I suppose. Anyway, so I took the awards. none of my family came down. So, I was the only one there that didn't have any family. But I picked up all the 3 main awards. Yeah, which is a bit of a bummer, I suppose. But I just, all I was waiting. So they said, listen, where do you want to go? And I went, 29 Commando. And they went, unfortunately, there's only one space available. So you're going to have to pick another unit and then transfer from there to 29 Commando. And I just thought, Germany, I'll go to the same unit that my old man was attached to, because I know the area. I played football for the school in there. Yep. So I ended up going to Gütersloh in Germany, 40 Field Regiment, bizarrely. Went there. What I didn't realise is they sent me to 137 Battery, who happened to be the alcoholic battery of the alcoholic
just your luck, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean?
The alcoholics of the alcoholics.
Well, it's funny because I got there about 9 o'clock at night in the evening into a four-man room, and then, there's my bed, obviously, because it's, so, got in there. The other 3 lads were out on the lash, if that makes sense. So
absolutely.
Came in, must have got in about 2 o'clock. And this is during the week, by the way.
Okay, yeah. Wednesday. Just a weekday, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So came in, shit-faced, and then I woke up about 4 to this trickling of water-ish. Looked over, and it was a guy on the right-hand side looking over, and he was swamping the bed, Anyway, so woke up, 7 o'clock, as you do, wake up. I'm right, let's, go and get a shower. Now, I'm a new boy here, so, that's keen as mustard. Other 3 still in bed. Came back from the shower, and the guy woke up, wanting to know who I was. You didn't know. But he reached under his bed. Bear in mind, he's still in army uniform, swamped, and he peed his bed and whatever. Reached under his bed for a can of lager. Yep. Hit the ring. Decked his can of lager in a Warner, really. Wow. And that was his Red Bull. That was that. But it was a large can of lager. And that's super refreshing. So all this was a bit new to me, really. I wasn't, because I wasn't a drinker. I was, always too young, still quite young now, so not a drinker at all, So and that really should have just, forewarned me what was coming up.
Yeah, that should have been the red flags of there's a lot that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I ended up about 8 months, I suppose, in Germany, waiting for the next 29 Commander course to come up, and. So
you were just biding your time, sort of thing, just waiting. Can't wait to get out of here. Don't want to be amongst these blokes. Not because of the quality of soldier, just the what's the word? There's a word. The culture of them.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah,
thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was a severe drinking culture. I keen as mustard. So we did they did an inter-battery athletics tournament.
How'd you go with that?
Yeah, well, the first race up was a 5,000 meters. So
easy.
Me and another young lad who came with me from training. We went. I came in first. This other lad came in. So we had maximum points.
Yeah, nice.
Fantastic. They were the only points that we got. At the end of it. And some of the guys, like the 400 meter hurdles, we had people crawling over the hurdles because they were tipsy from the night before. Wow. And the major in charge of it, I was sort of sat near him, I suppose, and he was just laughing it off, and don't
get me wrong. I like a bevy as much as the next man, but that's a bit unprofessional, in my opinion, but I can't obviously speak for them. Continue.
Yeah, massively. So that was it. I thought, I've got to get out of here. So I just threw myself into sport. So football team. I actually joined the tug of war team, even though I was quite a slim, small guy. I thought the training was fantastic. And bearing in mind that 40 Field Regiment were a very, very good tug-of-war team.
It would also build the upper body strength, not just the legs, to dig in. Wow. How'd you go with that?
I'll tell you what, it was brutal, absolutely brutal. The trainer was spot on. The trainer actually lived in the gym, and he was just full on with this tug-of-war team, So they had the normal, the heavyweights.
Yep.
You had a lightweight team, and then you had a catchweight team in the middle. So I pulled for the lightweight. And then they wanted me to do the catchweight as well, so which is a mixture of heavyweight and which is great because you did 2 competitions, which is brilliant, and it was good for me, running, and it was bizarre running around a 400 meter track with 2 bricks in your hand that you had.
that would be the grip strength training, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be honest, because it was different, it was new, but you just knew that you were going to benefit from this training, So I did that, and then they, I think I was in the cross country team. We were away doing cross country, and then my unit was they went away on exercise. I got back from a cross country meet. And a letter had arrived saying, you've been accepted for 29 Commando. You need to be here on this day. And it was about 3 days' time. So I never saw the lads at all. Just packed the kit, jumped on the plane, flew over to
no love lost there.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I was gone, and turned up at the Royal Citadel down in Plymouth.
Yep.
To do the old commando course, So
and
it was great.
Talk us through that journey from arriving in Plymouth to all the way through.
Yeah. So now I've always in the military. I've always wanted to go to Northern Ireland, if that makes sense. So when I looked at there's 3 batteries in 29 Commando. The 7 battery based up in Scotland, Arbroath.
Yep.
8 battery. Plymouth, 7-9 battery, Plymouth. There's also another little organisation called 148 Battery, who were based down in Poole, who are the naval gunfire thing. But because 7 battery, which would have been for me perfect to go down there, but 7 battery were due to go to Northern Ireland in a few months' time, if that makes sense. So, so the beat up course for the commando course is actually quite tough going because 29 they hit the nail on the head. They absolutely made sure that you were the fittest that you could possibly be, so that when you then went to do the proper commando course with the Royal Marines, you never let 29 down. You and everybody from 29 practically passed because you got boosted.
Gotcha. So 29's training course was harder than the Marines course sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was 5 weeks of hell, really. So we finished it, and then the night before we were due to go to Limston to do the commando course, we all got told that everybody that passed the course was going to go to 7-9 battery because 7-9 were going to go to Belize over in South America or Central America, and I I thought, no, I'm not having that. So I played on the ankle. So past that, and I so when the morning that everybody had to get ready for the vehicle to go to, I limped. I limped out, said, listen, my ankle's killing me, blah blah blah. But the instructors had already sussed out that I wanted to go to Sem Battery, so they knew that I was playing on it. So what they said was, listen, unfortunately, you're going to have to do the whole thing again in 4 weeks' time, a month's time. In the meantime, just do your own thing. Just
stay fit, stay out of trouble, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So they were massively understanding, which is great. So went through it all again. Second time, not too bad because you knew, and your level of fitness was actually quite high. So ended up going to Livingston. I actually found the commando course really easy, if that makes sense. And I know that really annoys a lot of Royal Marines and stuff like that, because the commando course you do, although it's the all arms commando course, so non-Royal Marines are doing their commando tests. They're exactly the same tests that the Royal Marines do, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But so you earn your green beret the same way as the Marines doing the same tests, and I actually found them, quite, purely because all the training that you'd done beforehand, it was fun. So did it. It finished with a 30-mile run, and then at the end of the 30-mile run, you get given your green beret and blah blah blah, and off we went. So at the end of it, all three of us got sent up to Scotland, Arbroath. When we got up there, everyone was on holiday, purely because they'd just finished the build up to Northern Ireland.
Yes.
So they said, listen, go away. So got up there. They said, listen, go away for a week, come back, and then you'll deploy over to Northern Ireland. Because we'd missed all the Northern Ireland training, we then had to go to Northern Ireland. We weren't allowed out on the ground until you'd done a shortened version of a training that the boys had done over in Northern Ireland itself.
Yep. Now, if you don't mind me interjecting, to anyone that's listening that may not have any idea what you're referencing when it comes to Northern Ireland with the IRA and whatnot, could you give people just a little bit of backstory as to what was going on in Ireland at the time?
Yeah, so we've gone given a bit of a false narrative, really. Catholics are bad, Protestants are good. That was the thinking at the time. Purely IRA, Catholic, Protestant. Yep. So you went across there with quite a negative attitude, really, to the Catholic population, and unfortunately, that's just the way it was. So on a Sunday, for instance, you took great pleasure in stopping all the Catholics going to church by searching all their cars and stuff like that, which really is a bit of a shitty attitude, I suppose. But in South Oman, which is where we were, which was, they call it bandit country, it was a bad location to be operating. The Catholic population down there, Republicans, did not like the British Army, and they made it very well known. When you're out on patrol, so it was quite a hostile environment, very difficult environment to operate. Anyway, so out there for 4.5 months, doing the job. 1 minute you were in Besbrook Mill, which was a small little town near Newry, which had a helicopter base there, which was the busiest helicopter base in the world at that time. Because all our operations were by helicopters, purely because any vehicle movement, there's a good chance it's going to get blown up.
Wow, so that's how hostile it was.
Yeah, and that's the height of the troubles. Unfortunately, it was quite an unforgiving situation to be in. It was the height of the troubles. So off we went. We didn't have any incident. Basically, the Royal Marines Parachute Regiment were out there. 2 para were out there. Bear in mind, during this period, they lost quite a few people at Warren Point, where 18 paratroopers lost their lives. And it was the same day really that royalty lost. I forgot what his name is now, but a guy got blown up in a boat on the western side of Ireland.
Wow.
Which was quite devastating for the royal family, if that makes sense. But on the same day, now I recently went over to Northern Ireland and paid homage really at Warren Point, and when you look back on it and when you see it now, you just realise what a fantastic, really well executed ambush that was by the IRA. And sometimes you got to tip the hat,
like textbook almost sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was everything was in their favour, because they knew that the paratroopers were going to drive down a certain area, and it was near a place called Narrow Water, just outside Warren Point, as if you're heading to Newry. So they planned it. So and unfortunately, on the other side of the water is the Republic of Ireland. So no go. The British Army can't go across there. Now the IRA knew that, so they set the ambush up, located on the Irish side of it, the Irish side of the border. Blew a haystack that had quite a large bomb in it. Just as there was 3 4-ton vehicles full of paratroopers. So just as the vehicles went past, they blew it. I think probably killed about 8 paratroopers instantly. They also calculated the way the British Army work, that the British Army would set up an immediate action point area, and it just so happened that was in there was a gateway to a small castle, and these large old-fashioned bricks to make the wall. Anyway, they stuck another bomb in there, and then blew that, which then killed a further 10 people. Made a hell of a mess, to be honest. Killed quite a senior individual. So the Queen's Own Highlanders, their CO was in the quick. Yeah, it was. They were in the QRF, Quick Reaction Force. Came in a helicopter, got dropped off. Helicopter disappeared. He happened to be fairly close because this is now where all the senior people were coordinating, what was going on. Bomb went off, so killed not only a lieutenant colonel, I think killed a captain, maybe a major, lieutenant. Of course, caused a lot of damage. So the perfect, I would say, ambush by the IRA, but unfortunately, they caused a lot of devastation to the parachute regiment.
Oh, of course.
But they were on a 2-year tour, and they actually extended an extra 6 months. So I ended up doing 2.5 years in Northern Ireland, and at the time, because it was a 2-year tour for the parachute regiment, they were in a camp, and they could actually bring their families over, so the families stayed in the camp. But it's not the best of postings, Northern Ireland, because you're in a gated environment. If that makes sense, so a bit restrictive for the families. So the tour went really, because ultimately there was a commando. So sorry.
No, that's okay.
So that we had a commando. I think it was 4-1 commando who were about to be put into suspended animation. Wow. And what I mean by that, they were going to be taken out of service. So this was their final tour. This was their swan song. Yep. And we went with them. So there was 4-1 commando, but also 2 para. So South Omagh was swamped with really good high-level troops.
Yeah.
So no incidents at all in the 4.5 months that we were there. So we finished the tour and then headed back to Arbroath, Scotland. Having done it, and it was for me great. One, because I got my first medal.
Yep. Was that the Gallantry Award?
No, it was the General Service Medal, GSM. So everyone that went to Northern Ireland for 4 months or more, you got a General Service Medal. So that really set you on the way, I suppose. But that's what I wanted to get my first tour out of the way. But in hindsight now, went there with the wrong attitude, if that makes sense. So, but I'll come on later on. So we got back from Northern Ireland, normal army sort of routine. I was in the Arctic. We were in the Arctic role, so every 3 months at the start of the year, you're in Norway. Ended up in northern Norway in the Arctic Circle.
At the start of the year, that'd be cold as heck.
Yeah, it's gets down to about -30, -35, something like that. So and it was good. Arctic soldiering really teaches you how to sort your admin out, because you lose a glove, you're going to be suffering So it was good, and I was on the OPs, so I've never been on the although I was in the artillery. I've never fired a gun, big gun.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was, so the grunts as we call them, are down that end. Yep. And I was fortunate enough because when I went to 40 Field Regiment and I was a young lad, fit, they said, "Oh, you'd be perfect for OP's observation post."
Yep.
So directing the gunfire. So I did that, and then when I transferred,
better than having to man the guns.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I went to 2-9, they said, "Listen, what job did you do at your old unit?" And I said OP, and they just happened to have a spare place. Because normally you have to earn your place on the OPs because it's quite a prestigious job, I suppose. And it really came to a head, I suppose, when we went to the Falklands. Because the Falklands War came up in 1982. No one could quite believe it, I suppose, because it was that April the 1st type.
Like April Fool's sort of possible.
Yeah, and nobody had a clue where the Falklands was. And then because we had the soccer, World Cup soccer was in Argentina in 1978. And everyone just remembers how hot the weather was. So we all started packing our jungle, jungle kit. Argentina, it must be hot. And then someone said, "Listen, it's not. It's flipping Baltic, really cold. So you need your cold weather stuff, So unfortunately, we packed our kit, went down there on a small landing support vessel called the Percival. Went down there, which is a flat bottom vessel, and it had a Mexi float or a metal raft, I suppose, attached to the side where I was sleeping. With the waves, this metal thing was banging against the hull, and it's like being in a bell, if that makes sense. So, and the flat bottom vessel. So, because it was flat bottom, when you went through the Bay of Biscay, and the Bay of Biscay is always known for being rough, flipping hell. This vessel got tossed all over the place. So, So not a great start, I suppose. Once you got out of the Bay of Biscay, you got your sea legs on, and everything was hunky dory. Got all the way down to the Ascension Island, which is a small little island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Managed to get offshore, which was fantastic, to do a 10-mile run. And when you've been wearing trainers on a ship, because you can't wear boots on a ship, you've got to wear trainers, put your boots on, and then doing a 10-mile run was actually quite devastating.
You would have had blisters all over your feet. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did the 10-mile run with 4-5 Commando. The next day, 3 Para were doing that. They were going to do their 10-miler, but they asked if we could provide the OP parties just so that we could go through a bit of training on archer target for artillery to infantry. If that makes sense. So we ended up doing a second 10-miler with a Para. So your feet were bad the first time; they got even worse the second time. Wow. But it was great because the best thing was getting off that boat. A boat can be very claustrophobic. There's only so much you can still train on there. You can still do little runs. By having a circular sort of. Down you go.
But you get cabin fever after a while, almost, sort of thing.
You do, and all the beds are very close together, and there's like four cots above it. It is, and your admin's got to be spot on as well. Admin and every night there's an inspection. In the morning or whatever, So, it's quite hard going. Ship's routine. For the showers was quite bizarre. So you got 3 showers, about 60 people wanting to go through the showers. So it was, 60 people in a long line. So you walked in there with your soap bottle. So everybody naked, soap bottle in your hand. Got in there, got yourself wet, came out, joined the queue.
Oh.
And while you're in the queue, you're sort of washing.
Soaping yourself up, yep.
Yeah. And then by the time you get back to the shower again, you're washing yourself out, and then toweling. And it was quite, it was quite bizarre to see it, but it worked. You know what I mean? It got people through the showers very, very quickly, like, because you certainly didn't have time to, you know, fanny about doing your own little shower. You know, you were in and out and you know, move yourself, like, you know. So it was you know, great. And quite bizarrely, in the canteen cookhouse, they had a little shop up there. So you had a Mars bar or buy yourself a can of Coke. But they allowed you to have 2 cans of beer as well, bizarrely. So people that didn't drink, so I wasn't a big drinker. So you would, you know, buy the beers and give them to, you know, some of the lads who, you know, prefer to have four beers rather than 2.
Yeah, gotcha. Yep.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it was good. It was a routine. And then we had to cross deck onto another, you know, and this is just the OPs now. We then had to cross deck just before we actually got into the Falklands sort of perimeter area, or the out of bounds area, I suppose, exclusion zone as they call it. We cross decked onto the Stromness, which was a logistics vessel, quite a large one that had 4 or 5 commando on it. So we then cross-decked over there and we met up with the people that we were actually going to be going to war with. And we got attached to Yankee Company, started talking, started to meet the MFC's mortar fire controllers from the Royal Marines. One of them, and I'll talk about this in a minute, one of them tragically lost his life. Unfortunately, but you know, I'll talk about that when we start talking about the Falklands. But it's good to actually be now with the people that you're actually going to be going to war with, if that makes sense. So it was all that,
because you're going from the routine and the preparation, and now it's leading up. Like that's all led up to this sort of moment. Continue.
Well, because up to that point, really, we were still expecting some sort of settlement.
And, like it'll die down before you even get there, sort of thing.
Yeah, in a way, you were hoping not, because you were a young lad and everyone wants to go to war. Or most
want to see if your training's paid off, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that didn't happen. So we then got put to action stations. So you know, quite heavy bargains, to be quite frank. Over £100 of weight in there.
Oh wow.
Because you got your radios and all that sort of stuff, a lot of ammunition, all your sleeping bags. So there was no luxury items at all. A couple of spare pairs of socks. I wore a set of Union Jack shorts that I was going to wear for the duration. You'll be glad to know that they were burnt when it had finished, because these were on for the whole duration.
Wow!
Because, you know, it saved me carrying another set of undies.
That's fair.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So no luxury items, and away you
literally
went,
everything you had on you was essential kit.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just before you sort of went over the side to drop down into the landing craft, if that makes sense, they also gave you 2 mortar bombs, which is quite heavy. That you know, so you got your weapon and 2 mortar bombs, so you're weighed down with quite a lot of kit. And bizarrely, the OP party that we were in ended up at the very front of a landing craft, and
that's not a fun spot to be.
Yeah, so you got all the Marines behind you, and then the food party, and you're thinking, hold on, should we be behind them, like, you know? But it was packed, and you just get on with it. And it was quite bizarre, because I still remember to this day, you know, the ramp went down. Obviously, your feet got soaking wet straight away. You then went ashore on a shale beach, dropped the mortars, because everybody. And it was just a way, really, of getting all the mortars, getting the bombs onto shore. Obviously, if it had been an opposed landing, you'd have ditched them straight away and fought your way on land or whatever. But for them, it was a way of getting. Anyway, it was unopposed, so nice and quiet, which was quite bizarre. Yeah. But literally, and that all finished after about 10 minutes when 2 Argentinian aircraft came wanging over, and the look on their faces was the same as ours. You know, it was all right, okay. aircraft.
Oh,
And then
yeah, that's right. We're actually here for something.
Yeah, absolutely. And then once they realised what was happening, then they sort of came back and then started
strafing and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. But it gave us time really to get into cover and away it went. So, but that first week, I suppose, was all about establishing a beachhead, and that's what the British Army wanted. They wanted just to get everybody on shore safely, so they could establish a beachhead. Before we did the breakout, if that makes sense. So that first week was just digging in as best you can. But unfortunately, when you're digging into peat bog, it's soaking wet. So in the end, you actually built up. So dug out peat and made walls and then rocks and all that stuff. So rather than going down, you actually went up.
Yeah, okay.
Because they were just full of water. Straight away, peat bog, quite a horrible stuff to operate in, to be honest. But anyway, did that, and then we got the breakout. So 2 para when we broke out, 4-5 we're going to do the tab or the jump across as they call it, and they went from where we were. We then got put in landing crafts again, which we weren't too happy with because it was daytime move. Landing craft. Okay. Taken over to the other side of San Carlos Water, and it's the scariest part of the whole campaign for me because
as in going back into the carrier,
yeah, absolutely, and because there's nothing you can do at all. If
you're literally sitting ducks, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it was about a half hour trudge across, which made it even worse. But it is what it is, you know what I mean? You just got on with it. So 2 para, obviously, they did the breakout and they obviously pushed over to do their battle. What they did, and then 4-5, we us and 3 para, then did the tab jump across to Teal Inlet, Douglas. And really, 2 para, 3 para, and 4-5 commando sort of mirrored each other, I suppose.
Worked in unison, sort of thing.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, with the OP party, you had to carry all your equipment because we have radios, all our ammunition, everything. So you're full burden. Whereas some of the 4-5 commando, they ditched their kit and they were being brought up later on. They were happy to do that, but we just had. So we took great pleasure, I suppose, in making sure. Now, about 6 months before the Falklands, remember I told you about my ankle pin?
Yes.
So the 18-month had gone past. I went for a run, and my ankle was really, really sore. 2 seconds, mate.
Sure.
Runner, come here.
One. Right, so 18 months prior, you'd done your ankle again, sort of thing. It was getting sore.
So I went for a run, and the ankle really stiff. So they X-rayed it and said, looks like your pin might have moved. I went, okay then. So they sent me down to hospital, Woolwich again, near where I did basic artillery training. Went down there, and I just before I got put under, I said, "Is any chance that I can keep the pin?" Because I was going to put it around my neck, as you do.
Yeah.
And they said, "Yeah, no problem at all." Came to after the operation. Couldn't find the pin anywhere. Anyway, the doctor turned up and said, "Listen, couldn't get the pin out. The pin is stuck solid because it should have come out after 18 months, and we'd let it lapse to." About the 3-4 year point.
So like it's calcified with the bone and whatnot, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was me just being a dickhead, totally forgetting about it, if that makes sense. So anyway, so they couldn't get it out, but the scar tissue hadn't really knitted fantastically. So when it came to the Falklands, everybody got issued these mountain boots as such, but they were quite short. They were ankle length as opposed to the high leg boots that we're used to wearing. So So I tried them on. I said, listen, no, too uncomfortable because of my pin. So I went with Northern Ireland patrol boots, and Northern Ireland patrol boots are very lightweight and flimsy, and get wet instantly. Your feet are soaking wet instantly. But the good thing is they dry out in the evening quite quickly, whereas the mountain boot take ages to actually get water in. But once water is in there, they stay wet.
It's impossible to get them. Yeah, they stay wet.
Yeah. So I was quite bizarre that a lot of the Marines went down with trench foot, with these new fangled boots, whereas, my pathetic Northern Ireland boots that I had were perfect for me, so it was good. But the ankle started to get a bit septic because you're in peat bog. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, thought nothing of that at all. So we got to Teal. Then we got to Douglas, or Douglas Teal, whatever, and then we moved forward then onto a place called Mount Kent. And Mount Kent, our artillery was already there, so our artillery was actually in front of their OPs because they got helicopter. Yeah, quite bizarre, but they got helicopter forward. Quite bizarre when their guns got lowered onto Mount Kent. There was a massive firefight going on. The SAS and 4-2, I think, were having a massive fight, not against each other, obviously against the Argentinians. But Mount Kent hadn't been cleared properly, but they brought the artillery up anyway, and just so that we had guns so far forward that if any of the units needed artillery support, they had it instantly, if that makes sense. So there was a method to the madness of it all.
Yes,
but
gotcha.
It went, yeah.
Now, if you don't mind me tangenting back real quick. So from the point of that 30-minute trip back around, like in the landing craft, to this moment, how much time has elapsed?
Yeah.
Is it weeks? Is it days? Is it hours?
No. To get to Mount Kent took about 6 days.
Okay.
Cabin. Yeah, 6 days. Because we overnighted at Teal. Quite bizarrely, on the very first, so we got off a vessel, off a landing craft, did the first move, and it was towards Teal Inlet. But it was going to take 2 days to get there. So we, yomp, and then, right, everyone just get their head down where we are now. So, looked up, lots of cloud in the. No, there was no cloud because you could see all the stars. So we thought, perfect. So we didn't even bother putting a shelter up. But unfortunately for us, it absolutely bucketed down. Absolutely chucked it down.
And that's why you were talking about the boots sort of thing.
Yeah. So we got absolutely soaking wet. Sleeping bag, everything, soaking wet. Big mistake. But by the time we got to Teal Inlet, there was an opportunity then to dry the bag out, which was great. And then the following day, it was then another day tab over to Douglas, and we were in a sheep shed. So again, time to get everything dried out because your feet were soaking all the time because there's peat bog. There was just no and the rain, driving rain, and everything else. It was bitter weather. It was cold. It was their winter, the height of their winter down there. And I suppose, looking on the bright side, we were used to it because we went to Norway every year. But this was a wet cold. Norway's a dry cold. This was a wet cold, wet and miserable. And if you weren't used to being wet and miserable, you were going to suffer. But you just, again, and it was the days before Gore-Tex. So we just, these crisp packet waterproof jackets that you had that after 2 seconds you were soaking wet anyway, but it is what it is.
Waterproof, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you just got on with it. But then, and then we got to Mount Kent, and Mount Kent was where it started to get serious, I suppose.
Yeah, it's kicking off sort of thing.
Yeah, because this was now, we're now in the high features. So we're on Mount Kent. we got told that our next objective, which was going to be a fighting objective, was Two Sisters.
Yeah. Okay.
So we had Two Sisters, 3 para had Mount Longdon, and for 2, we're going to do Mount Harriet. So it was going to be 3 major hills taken on the same evening, which was the 11th and 12th of June, 1982. And
now, to anyone that's listening, Mick actually posted the maps, for lack of a better term, for a visual on his LinkedIn. So I'll superimpose those for a visual for anyone that's watching this episode so they can get an idea as to, just what he's talking about. Continue, Mick.
Yeah, so we spent about 5 days at Mount Kent, and obviously first priority was to adjust the guns, the artillery guns, onto
like zero them in, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that you were just using target numbers as opposed to grid references, and if they're already recorded, so when you needed them, you just shouted the number down the radio. Fire mission, whatever, the number, and the rounds would automatically hit because you've already adjusted them.
You've got it zeroed in, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a day spent, really. Now, unbeknown to me, we fired all 3 batteries, 7 battery, 8 battery, yeah, and that's called a fire mission regiment.
Because all guns are being used.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Now, ordinarily, not a massive, not a major drama. But all of a sudden, once we'd finished it and adjusted all 3 batteries, fire mission regiment, the CO of the 2-9 came on and said, "Do you realise that's the first fire mission regiment in Angus since the Korean War?"
Wow.
And, yeah, we sort of did it and adjusted on it. So now unfortunately for me, when we after the Falklands, every time we got a VIP visiting, it was Hawksy will tell you about the fire mission.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, but at the time, all right, okay, that's nice and cool. Nice to know.
Yeah.
So we did that, but also we had a bit of an incident. So 4-5 Commando had to send out a fighting patrol to cover the area because while you're there, it's still pretty active. So we knew the Argentinians were the Two Sisters side and doing their patrol. So 4-5 sent their fighting patrol from Yankee Company, sent out a fighting patrol. Remember I told you about the mortar fire controllers?
Yes.
So the mortar, 4-5 mortars, about 6 months before the Falklands, they lost 3 people on a double feed on an exercise. So unfortunately, they were going so quick that they fired, put 2 mortars basically in the same mortar.
One after the other, yeah.
Blew up and instantly killed 3 members of the mortar.
The mortar crew, yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's a bit of a setback. So bear that in mind. So now you've got a fighting patrol going out and with an MFC, and his best mate was at the same time leading 4-5 Commandos mortars to an area. So these 2 were in communications with each other, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Now the mortars were in the wrong place. Talk about the wrong place at the wrong time. So you can imagine pitch black. The fighting patrol went out, Yankee Company, came across this other patrol, but didn't know who they were. They weren't supposed to be there. So they set up an ambush, laid in an ambush, set the ambush up. And someone said, "Could it be the mortars?" And they went, "No, definitely not the mortars."
Surely not. They're in the wrong spot if they are, sort of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. So to confirm it, they got one of the lads, the MFC, to talk to his best mate and say, just a bit of confirmation. So he got on the radio and said, he says, "Listen, just for confirmation, but are you actually walking or are you static? Are you stood still?"
Yep.
Now, he was at the front of the patrol, the mortars. Unbeknown to him, that the mortars had decided to take a break. So had stood, taken the mortars off and just stood. He was actually walking at the front, map reading.
Wow.
And he said, and so he passed back on the radio, no, we're actually yomping to the site. So instantly
They're
came
like,
back
right,
and went,
that's confirmation. That's not them. That's enemy. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a blue on blue occurred. So they lost, I think they lost another five more people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the only way it stopped was that someone heard English language being, someone was crying or shouting in English, and they realised, what's going on. And it was just devastating because that in effect took the mortars out of the equation. So 4 or 5 no longer had any mortars. So ready to do the next phase of the battle, but going in without mortars, and that's quite a hefty blow, to be quite frank. But then that then put a lot of emphasis on artillery, and what we could do. So anyway, we sort of did that, and then we got the go ahead that and it was the evening of the 11th. Bitterly cold. It was snowing, freezing weather. So we then got moved around to the start line as such. So you had Zulu Company, they had a start line. Yankee Company had their start line, and X-Ray Company also had a different start line, because you had the Two Sisters, which is 2 major peaks in front of you that had this sort of hollow in the middle. And Yankee Company were going to take 1 peak, X-Ray were going to take another, then Yankee were going to, Zulu were going to take the middle part. Yeah, absolutely. So we're all set, all good to go, and you were just laid there, and it was a silent attack, so everything nice and quiet, no radio communications, everything's silent. Unbeknownst to us, that what the Argentinians were doing was they were just throwing mortar rounds up in the area, just I don't know. They didn't realise we were there, but they were just, throwing mortars up, and there is being under a mortar barrage, knowing that you can't do anything about it is quite horrific, because there's nowhere to run to. There's nowhere to crawl to, because you're on your start line.
You literally just, from what I've obviously seen, you just sort of sit tight and grit and bear it and hope it doesn't land near you. Sort of thing.
Absolutely.
That'd be terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. But, ultimately, for me, it was great because I got my head down. But because, you just got to get it through your head that you can't do anything about this. So, I don't know when my next sleep's going to be. Let's get my head down, but it was bitterly cold. So it was very, very hard to get. And then when we got the go ahead to start moving, someone let off a trip flare. And then instantly all opened up. So it went from a silent attack to a full on, if that makes sense. And it was tough going, because the Argentinians were all dug in quite well, and we were just moving ourselves up. But unfortunately, because they didn't have mortars, they were using our artillery as if it was mortars. And bear in mind that there's only so many rounds that you can fire before you have to say, listen, we're not going to take out a machine gun post. You're going to have to do that yourselves, fix bayonets and get stuck in, because we're an area weapon as opposed to pinpoint.
Yeah, it becomes danger close at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, it was all our missions that we did were danger close all the way up, and literally 50 meters in front of us. So to the extent that after the Falklands War, following year, I was down in Lark Hill in Wiltshire at the Royal School of Artillery, and they actually changed their procedures on danger close in the environment that we were operating, which was very hilly, rocky.
Oh, wow.
Going up. Yeah. They actually listened to people that had been on the ground and actually done it, so because ordinarily danger close, you put rounds quite a distance away and then you creep it slowly back. You didn't have any time for that, none of that crap. There was just no time at all. You just, and all you did was just shout over at the Marines, listen, rounds are going to be coming in about 50 metres in front of you. Get your heads down, and as you told them roughly when the rounds were coming into it, to a couple of seconds, 20 seconds, you're going to get impact. And they were happy, It shit a lot of people up because it's not nice being under an artillery barrage. It's worse than the mortars, not too bad. Artillery is even worse, and later on, when the Argentinians started opening up with 155 artillery, which was actually double the size of what we were using, it was even worse, So,
wow.
Yeah, and you just got on with it, Unfortunately, we lost a Royal Marine got shot just to my right-hand side, a guy called Blue Novak. Got hit in the head with a .50 caliber weapon. Basically took the whole of his back of his head off. Still alive, bizarrely, for quite a while. So they, you try and do the best you can for people. Majority of the time, you're just trying to take their ammunition off them and just get on with it. But yeah, busy time, fighting your way up. Again, quite surreal having to fix bayonets. Fixing bayonet with an SLR self-loading rifle is actually quite a long weapon, and so then sticking a bayonet on the end of that is
even longer.
Yeah, but it's because we were now getting into the trenches and literally fixed bayonets and all your way up. But thankfully, come early morning, about 7 o'clock in the morning. So the attack started about midnight-ish. Is when we started moving. Come about 7-8 o'clock in the morning, we practically all three companies had taken their objective. And
that's still a long time to be, under, counter-offensive sort of thing.
It is, but it went really quickly.
True. 7 hours would have felt like 7 minutes, sort of thing.
Yeah, but for us, that wasn't it finished. So we got to the top, and you could actually see, the Argentinians now retreating as such, which made perfect target for artillery. So we just followed them with a barrage, and it was quite bizarre. So you'd hit the Argies. They would disperse the ones that were still alive, but they would then come out and inspect the holes.
Rather than just continue to get out of there, they would.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was repeat.
Yes. That goes without saying.
Yeah. And someone at the end of it sort of said, well, not at the end of that, but later on in life, said, do you feel remorse firing at people that weren't a threat? And my answer to that was, a retreating army is not a defeated army.
No, that's it. I definitely agree with that statement.
Yeah, because our next objective was Sapper Hill. And Sapper Hill was the last major hill overlooking Stanley. And believe you me, to take that, we would have taken lots and lots of casualties. So these people that you're hitting that are retreating could have been heading to
They were
Sapper
literally
Hill.
retreating to regather for a counter-offensive. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we took our objective, which was Two Sisters. 3 para took theirs. Longdon, they had a tough old time. Mount Longdon, 40 Commander 4-2 took Harriet to our right, and it was quite bizarre because Longdon kicked off first. So when we were on the start line, Mount Longdon lit up, and we just thought, flipping hell. I mean, it was a spectacular sight to see tracer rounds and grenades and things going off to your left-hand side. It was a bit surreal because, this was now proper warfare, if that makes sense. And then 4-2's Mount Harriet, that went off, and we were silent still.
You're like, how is this going off for West and silent somehow?
Yeah, and you know, you have that in the back of your mind. Oh, hope they've seen that and they've all gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And and literally as soon as we started moving, nope. And then we got it like, you know, and it's a spectacular, surreal feeling being in major close combat, if that makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
mortars, artillery, and everything else. But no respite on the top, so no rest for the wicked,
Yep.
because
Yep.
then because over in on Tumbledown, which is another high feature, they had an artillery observation post, and they were lobbing 155 artillery rounds onto Two Sisters. So we picked up quite a few casualties of these rounds. But again, not a lot you can do about it. You just sort of, you know, put your head up, hear the whistle of it coming in, and then just hope it's not going to hit you. And you're behind rocks and everything else. So as much cover as you can physically, because again, you know, trying to dig in
Yeah.
on a mountain top was impossible. So it was just trying to build yourself up. But they, you know, yes, we I think we spent 2 nights up on Two Sisters, very open, being hit with this, artillery fire. And then it all came through then that the Argentinians had started to all sort of head back into Stanley. So they hadn't officially surrendered,
Mm.
but we then got the push to head over to Sapper Hill, and unbeknown to us, there was a massive minefield that we had to go through it basically, and there was no way around it because they. But in the Falklands, the limit of exploitation for each individual organisation, so 2 para, 3 para, 4, 5 commando, 40 commando, plus the Scots Guards who took Tumbledown, there's only so much area, you know, and it was getting closer. So you couldn't make a sort of detour around it into someone's area of responsibility, because otherwise you were going to get a blue on blue. If that makes sense. I don't know if you're aware, but the SBS and the SAS had a major blue on blue.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, on sort of round about the Mount Kent area.
Mm-hmm.
So before the battles had started, and again it was because they were out doing nighttime operations. Nobody knew where each other was, and unfortunately G Squadron came across SBS patrol. They both opened up, and unfortunately, the 2 SBS guys got killed. Unfortunately, and that really set the tone for this rivalry between the SBS
and the SAS.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, there's not a lot you can do about it. You know, blue on blues happen in every warfare.
Yeah.
They're sad, but it's just a fact of life. That at some stage, someone's going to open up. But it's not a nice feeling to be involved in it. With that ambush on the mortars. But it is what it is, and you just put it to the back of your mind.
Yeah, compartmentalize it, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the sad thing was we had to go down for a meeting prior to the attack on Two Sisters, but just after. The blue on blue.
Yeah, blue on blue, yep.
Yeah, and listening to the radio operator, because you get these zap numbers that you've got on your dog tags. So names don't come up. It's just a zap number that comes through, and you're hearing that, and then the officer in charge of the mortars in tears, literally, as he's reading out the names of the lads that have been killed. Sad time. And unfortunately, I said that the two were talking to each other.
Yep.
Well, the guy at the front practically got the GPMG full in the stomach because he was the closest.
Yep.
So he took the full brunt of the fire. I suppose on the bright side, he wouldn't have felt anything.
It literally would have been instant, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah, but these are people that you've been working with for the last few nights, and met them on the Stromness. So got a bit of a bond because our jobs are very similar. They were directing mortar fire, we were directing artillery fire, so very very similar. similar roles. But sad. But we now, that sad does straight away into ecstasy where, yes, we've got these people on the run. Ended up on Sapper Hill very, very late at night. We found a cave, which was fantastic. And this is bizarre, because we hadn't washed or, we were stinking and everything else. And we found this cave, got in it, thought it smelt a bit weird, but anyway, woke up in the morning and it was the Argentinian shit pit. It's where, so you woke up ready to all these jobbies and bits of paper, and it's obviously it was where the Argies did their crap,
business.
Yeah, so we unfortunately, so rolling your sleeping bag up or dragging it out, and it's just full of Argentinian crap, trying to wash it. But anyway, and that was it. That was the battle's finished, really. So Sapper Hill, we were on Sapper Hill for 2 nights, and then we then got told to head into Stanley. We got into a house that had been vacated by Argentinians, so trashed. So we try to clean it up as best we can. The owners of the house turned up 2 days later because we were in there for 3 nights, 4 nights maybe. They turned up after the second night to make us a massive meal. So we're a little 4-man team. We cleaned the house as best we can, which they really appreciated. Yep. I said, listen, you stay in the house, and we're safe where we are. You stay in the house. We're going to make you a meal tonight. So they came out, cooked a meal, fantastic. And then it was, how do we get back home? And I don't know if you're aware, but the Argentinians, all the Argentinians that had surrendered, were taken straight back to Argentina on the Canberra and Norland, the 2 civilian vessels that came down. So they took them straight away, repatriated them all back over there. Vessels came back. We then got told that we were going to go back on the Canberra. Right. So when we were on Mount Kent and we had that period, so my
uncle... As in period of between going to Kent and Sapper?
No, Mount Kent, before we did the attack on Two Sisters.
That's right. Yep. Sorry, my bad.
Right. So my ankle was in a bad way. Yeah, really bad way. So septic and everything else. So I went down to, one of the lads said, mate, you need to get that sorted out. So I went down to the first aid post, Royal Marine first aid post. So one of the guys sort of took the sock off, so flipping out, this is a bad way. So he called the chief medical officer over, who then said, listen, what I want you to do now is go back, pick up all your equipment, and we're going to fly you off to the Uganda, which is a hospital ship.
Yep.
And I looked at him and thought, you're fucking joking. So yeah. I've just tabbed all this way to get stuck into battles. I mean, a 4-man team, so losing a person out of a 4-man team is quite a big hit, if that makes sense.
You're literally an entire person down.
Yeah. So I nodded, said, yeah, no problems with that. Yeah. Knowing full well that I was going to ignore him.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they strapped it up nice and tight. They gave me a load of antibiotics. Yeah, thanks for that. And away I went. I'm coming back here. The next day, one of the guys said, Mick, it looks like an officer walking up the hill. So we got the binoculars out, and it was the chief medical officer storming up the hill.
Wow.
Yeah. So he came up, gave me a massive bollocking for ignoring his order, as he called it.
Yeah.
But thankfully,
you just took it as advice. It's not an order; it's advice. Yeah.
So anyway, Major, so in charge of the battery, was happened to be close by. He could hear the sort of ranting and that. So came over, and I explained that I had no intention of sort of leaving, even though the ankle was bad and that lot. So he said, listen, he spoke to he said, listen, Hawkes has just told you how he feels. So unfortunately, we'll leave it at that. So he was a bit gutted. So he then went back down there. and we just cracked on. So I'm glad, and I wouldn't have changed anything if that makes sense. And you know, when you think of people that went back to the Uganda were people that had been shot in earlier of the campaign.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people lost arms and stuff like that. So I remember thinking that if you're in a war zone, you don't go sick unless you've actually lost a leg or something like that. You know, a bit of a gammy ankle. Yeah, you know, long term can have its issues, but short term, strap it up. You know,
give me antibiotics. I'm good to go.
Paracetamol, get on with it. You know, grab your weapon and stuff. And that
I'm a
was
big believer in that sort of mentality, just in general. Yeah,
absolutely. And that was it. You know, it was just. But it was that era. Of mentality, just get on
literally
with it.
If you're not bleeding, you're not hurt. If you're not puking, you're not sick.
Yeah, absolutely. But unfortunately, it meant that I spent, so the Canberra took to just under 2 weeks to get back. And I spent all that time.
Was that back to the UK or was that via other places?
All the way back to UK straight away. So I ended up in the sick bay on a drip. For the whole duration, apart from the final 2 nights. The final 2 nights, they said, "Yeah, okay, you can, you know, we'll allow you to leave now." So I spent 2 nights sort of celebrating out of that 2 weeks, if that makes sense. Some of the lads used to come in and bring the odd can of beer in to drink, but because you're on antibiotics,
it hits you a bit quicker, a bit harder.
Yeah, it's it was quite bizarre because you know I wouldn't have changed anything. You know, it was worth being in that hospital for nearly 2 weeks, getting your ankle sorted, than actually taking yourself
coming off the line.
Yeah, absolutely, because you know you've now sort of finished your.
By that point, job's done. You're literally on your way home.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was it, and then bizarrely, you know, we got off the vessel at Southampton. You know, the Prince Charles had actually come on board the night before. The Royal Marine Band were on there. It was all a bit surreal. And then coming into Southampton Harbour, you had all these slippy boats and, you know, spraying water. So, yeah, it was a bit bizarre, really. Again, no family there to meet you. So, you know, I was one of the sad ones that then we got off at Southampton. My biggest regret was not staying in Southampton. But we were all told, because we were based up in Arbroath, Scotland, we then had to... That's a bit of a trek. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we were being flown up there, so we jumped on a Hercules, flew us up to Lucas, just outside Dundee. And then we got the boat buses, and the streets were lined with people. So again, bizarre. Got back to Arbroath. You know, most people married. Some of the so you know, I was one of the sad single people, and we went out drinking. And the local pub was free beer all night. I had 3 Pernod lemonades, and that was me absolutely off my trolley. So I ended up. I think went out at 7 o'clock in the evening. By 9 o'clock, I was back home.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you know, it was just just get your head down. And then we had 6 weeks, 6 weeks leave.
Oh wow, that would have been nice. What did you do in those 6 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really just touring. There's a couple of us sort of decided, single guys, no girlfriends are out, so you know, the saddos. So we ended up just going all around the country. You know.
And what was your favourite place to visit in that, you know, 6 week break that you had?
Yeah, probably we went down to Devon, which is where one of the lads lived. We spent a week down there. He had a cousin that lived in Windsor. So we ended up going to Windsor, all buying fancy blazers, because we thought, you know, Windsor's nice and posh. So a pair of jeans on, nice fancy blazer. And we did a pub crawl.
Oh, I love that.
Where you have to drink a pint of beer in every pub that you know, and it was great, you know, because everybody appreciated it, and the country as a whole was on a high. You know, Maggie Thatcher, and you know, and it was just really good times, if that makes sense. But So all that fitness level went out the window because at the end of that 6 weeks, and it was time to get back, and it was not long after that really that we planned the trip to Australia, and off we went over there, So.
And was that just for like a foreign relations sort of thing?
Yeah, it was. We were, because we're an artillery unit. Then we got invited over to an artillery unit in Brisbane, or just outside Brisbane, to do a sort of joint exercises.
And how was that working with the Australians?
Yeah, it was great because not only was it work-wise, doing exercises and that lot, but it was really nice weather. It was compared to what we. But a lot of time off as well. They took us to wine vineyards and stuff like that, wine tasting. Where I don't think anyone actually brought a bottle, but we all ended up off our
drunk anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Went down to Sydney, so drove all the way down to Sydney.
That's a big drive, especially back then before the Pacific Highway changes were done. Yeah, what was that? What was the drive like?
Yeah, took 3 days, I think, because we were in the old Land Rovers. We stopped off at Singleton.
I know where that is. I'm about an hour and a half south of Singleton.
Yeah. So down there, and then we stayed on a little camp at Manly. First night, went out on the lash, and we paired up with. It's funny when we were in Brisbane, they gave us so we had 2 weeks R&R. So they took us to Surfers Paradise. Fantastic. Anyway, so the locals they did a sponsor a POM.
I love that
type thing on the radio, so families could turn up and take take a Brit home. Stay with this guy or stay with this family for 2 weeks, great. Apart from the Dirty Dozen, so the singlies who had a bit of a reputation, and unfortunately I was one of them. We got herded, and it was like a cattle market. Yes, I'll take them, and and unfortunately, we got herded over to one corner by the Sergeant Major, who said, "Listen, guys, you lot are not going anywhere. You're going to be staying." And what they did with us, they put us on a little boat, like a cruiser type vessel, out in the harbour, and actually we got the best of the deal, really. Quite bizarrely, the first morning, the radio station had sponsored for us to have a champagne breakfast. And so but bearing in mind that we'd all got drunk the night before, so we're in no real fit state to wake up early. But these girls came over with trays, champagne, sandwiches, baked sandwiches. That's fantastic. And actually they treated us really, really well. It was, but for some reason they had it in their head that we canoed onto the Falklands. Typical commando. Is that how you got on and like that? No. So they arranged this
reenactment sort of thing.
Well, no, they arranged for this race to happen, and it was down the Brisbane River or in Surfers Paradise.
Yes.
There was a long river. So and it was about 10 miles long, and we were looking at each other going, 10 miles in a canoe, you're joking. So 4 of us, we got an Indian, the old style Indian canoes. They're big, So the 4 of us in that. Now we had a cunning plan, and the cunning plan was to, test the boat, nice and early, go out there and just keep going. So set off massively early, if that makes, way before they. Now that plan went, it was a good plan, just badly executed, because just before the race started, everyone got a race number. We'd missed that bit. So now what happened was we canoed to the other side of the river, Knocked on someone's door and said, "Listen, any chance you could ferry us and our little, into Brisbane, like,
Yeah.
it was Brisbane, not
Yes.
in Brisbane." And they kindly said, "Yeah, no problem at all," like, so I think we actually raced about not even a mile. Anyway,
work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, we got off and we had loads of cans of beer in the thing. So we then set off and we thought, listen, we obviously can't cross the finish line just yet. So we met up with there's a load of other people, civilians, who were out on a little, having a little jolly. And they would all come round and we had a little banyan in the middle of the river. Sharing,
I love that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, to our left down the river, we saw a helicopter and all these boats following this professional canoeist. And we thought, flipping hell, we better move.
Yeah.
So we then decided, and we couldn't go in a straight line, but we were all over the place. And anyway, we sort of crossed the finish line, and to the boos of the organisers, because they were taking it really, really serious.
Yeah, whereas you literally just had a good booze cruise. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just took the piss. If that makes sense. Yeah, so
I love that. But
they arranged a big disco and a few beers afterwards. They understood that we weren't going to take this serious, and but just to cross the line in front of this professional.
Yeah, I love that so much.
But the first thing they said was, "Where's your race numbers?" And we were like, "That what numbers?" Because we literally set off 2 hours before everyone else. Wow. We were off, and then got driven.
Basically, yeah.
So but no, it was great fun. Absolutely great time out there, and the Aussies were typical Aussies. Really took us to our hearts, like and great time, really great time.
And after Australia, where'd you end up?
Yeah, first time, really. So it was good because everyone gets an impression about Australia and everything else, and POMs and the rivalry. Because I'm a big sports fan, and we all know the rivalry and that lot.
Oh yeah.
But deep down, we're Commonwealth. We're all the same, like if that makes sense. And if you get away, as long as you don't talk sports, everything's fine, like and because of the Falklands as well. Down in Manly, for instance, they had a thing on the radio, and families came and invited you, and it was 3 or 4 oldish ladies, about 70 odd years of age, invited 6 of us back to their place, if that makes sense. Come and meet my daughters and all this, but it was just really. Really friendly, nice environment to be in, and it was great because it was a great way of sort of decompressing. After the Falklands, I suppose. So and quite bizarrely, there's about 8 or 9 lads ended up emigrating.
Oh wow!
To Australia, because some of them, I said that families and that lot. 3 of the guys actually met their future wives on that thing, like so. Yeah, they emigrated over there, like good on them, if that makes sense. So, but stuck on the boat, we didn't have much chance, like
that's fair.
They were making sure that the Dirty Dozen were not gonna not gonna ruin the whole friendly thing. Like, we just I had no front teeth, and I was a bit of a rebel and stuff like that, man. And my hair was always had a crew cut. Always short.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that's typical military. You get them types of people in the military, and you just get on with it, like so.
And after your time in Australia, your R&R, for lack of a better term, comes to an end, and the military exercises that you were doing with the artillery. Where did you end up next after that?
Yeah, so it's we did a few tours. So every year Norway, and it got to the point where I could plan what I was doing 2 years in advance, because I knew I was going to go to Norway for 3 months. I knew that we're probably going to do a Denmark trip, and a hot country. Kenya, we ended up going to Kenya twice, Canada, Australia, obviously. But it got a bit to the point where you just thought
monotonous sort of thing.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. So there was no more operational tours coming up. No, and I just thought, right, maybe time to give the SAS a bit of a bash, so from then on, from the moment of from about 1985. I gave myself 12 months to get myself ready for January 1986, which was my first SAS selection. If that makes
now,
sense.
you say first. Is that because you attempted it more than once, or was it you had to go through multiple different selection processes?
No. I so did the build up. I spent a lot of time running up and down stairs, which I found the perfect training, because the first part of SAS selection is running up and down hills, large hills, at a rapid pace, to say the least. So the build up to that really was, either if you didn't have any hills around you, run up and down stairs. Get yourself, and it's really important, really, that you get yourself down into Wales where they SAS do their selection process and get to know the routes that you're going to be doing, so that it becomes second nature. So when you get off the vehicle and they say, look, this is the way you're going to be going, you know already in your mindset that's the way you're going to be going, if that makes sense. And that's all they doing the homework part. And the SAS expect that. They expect people to become go down there quite prepared. So a lot of the time was going down there. All the free time that you had really was getting a vehicle, going down to Wales, go and do a few of the routes, so that you're happy. And I was lucky that there was another guy that was going with me, so two of us trained quite well for it, if that makes sense. So down we went. So all of a sudden, December passed, which is 85. 86, January 86, I went down and started the course. January, 170 people rocked up.
How long is the selection process from going there on day one?
6 months altogether. Yeah. So the first one is
the first one is intake.
Yeah. Well, there's a winter and a summer course, and because Norway, and I was a good map reader, the winter course is the one for me, if that makes sense.
Of course.
So So what happened was, started the course, and in them days it was 4 weeks. So the first week really was learning how to map read, which I found quite bizarre. Call me old fashioned, but if you're going on SAS selection, you should be able to map read.
You should be able to map read if you're in the service in general. I reckon.
No, absolutely. So it was like map. When I mean learn to map read, map read in the mountains, in the hills.
Okay. Yeah.
While you're walking at a rapid pace or running, that type of stuff. But again, all the basic stuff really. Yeah. So the first week really was quite gentle. Get yourself into it, run up and down hills. And then the second, third week really was a build up really to test week. They call it test week, which is the final week. And test week is 6 days but 7 marches, and it culminates really on the final one of about 70-kilometre tab, with about 75 pounds worth of kit on your back with your weapon. And
you're obviously got a deadline, like a time frame that you have to make it in, sort of thing.
Yeah. And on average, that's got to be done in about 18 hours. So no hanging about. You're shifting, if I may. But that's at the end. So bear in mind that you've got all these. So the first one, quite hard going. So anyway, unbeknown to us, the weather came in really bad just before test week. And it got that bad that the first time ever that SAS selection was cancelled or postponed.
Yep.
Postponed for a week. And I said, listen, so we did weapon training, did weapons and, kept yourself busy and everything else. But the weather didn't get any better. It was horrendous. So we started, they just said, listen, just going to have to go for it, away you go, So we did the first route, and bear in mind that the snow's up to your crutch. So you've got heavy burgeoning, snow up to your crutch, up and down mountains. There's no way else you can describe it. Hard going, tough going, if that makes sense. So did the first one. Second route was a place called Elan Valley, which is quite boggy. Generally, it's quite boggy. So we've got all this boggy ground, plus snow up to your crutch, plus heavy bergen, and quite a long distance as well, Elan Valley. So unfortunately, I was the first one to be called off the truck. So you're going to be trailblazing, basically, for everyone else.
Pace leader, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, jumped off, finished mustard. Yeah, away you go. There was 7 checkpoints altogether, and it was about, I think it was about 24 kilometers altogether. So
anyway, a mini marathon distance sort of thing. A half marathon distance, a half marathon sort of distance.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So basically we got to, where did we get to? No, it's about 18 miles, mate. 19 miles, something like that, mate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the checkpoint, which one did you get to?
Yeah, so got to the sixth checkpoint. And quite bizarrely, the training major and the chief instructor were up there having a cup of coffee. So got there, and they just shouted out my name. They went, "Hawksy," and I sort of looked at them. They went, "What I want you to do is just step off, go over there, go and get yourself a nice cup of coffee or cup of tea, and allow a couple of people to overtake you." Now, I thought that was a test.
I'm thinking that too. I'm thinking, surely, I'm going to keep going, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was my thought straight away. And I went, I'm okay. And they just shrugged their shoulder. And anyway, so cracked on. All I remember doing is heading up to the final checkpoint. And then the next minute, I'm in a helicopter.
Oh, shit.
You know, when you wake up and what the hell? I couldn't believe. Anyway, so what happened? So helicopter taken all the way back to the sick bay in Stirling Lines, Hereford. But the instructor, the instructor that was on that checkpoint came in to find out how I was, and told me the story. And he said, "Yeah, what happened, Mick, was you came up to the final checkpoint. Bear in mind that checkpoint, and then it was all downhill to the final, where the vehicles were." Fantastic. Anyway, got to the final checkpoint, took my bergen off, which is quite unusual, really. Because you normally just keep your bergen on and just get your map out and and he gives me the grid reference. You point to it using a little twig to say, yeah, that's where I'm going. So that he's happy that you've understood where you're going. And away you go. Anyway, I took my bergen off, for some bizarre reason. Acknowledged the grid reference, put his bergen on because he was stood there with his bergen on. So I grabbed his bergen, put it on, and then ran in the totally opposite direction to where. So I should have been going that way, and I ran that way, and he instantly thought, yeah, something amiss here. So rugby tackled me. I was all over the place. So they brought a helicopter in, casevaced me out in the helicopter. I came to. In the helicopter, and it was just exhaustion, cold weather, everything. I was just out of it, totally delirious. Anyway, the chief instructor came in, training major came in, And I actually thought, while you're on test week, you're allowed one gypsies warning. So if you're slightly over time, they call it a gypsies warning.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed one. If you thereafter, none at all.
Literally one strike, you're out if you bugger up.
Yeah. So because I hadn't had a gypsies warning, I assumed this is my gypsies warning. But again, one of the chief medical officer came in and said, "You ain't going out tomorrow. It's not in your interest really." So basically, you failed the course. In a nutshell, they never said that. They said, "Look, unfortunately, you can't carry on." But in a nutshell, that's you failed.
And how did you feel when they were saying that to you?
Distraught, absolutely distraught, because people don't understand how much effort goes into training to do SAS selection.